I'm Katie. Sitting in my cozy upstairs studio, with the framed deed hanging beside my grandfather's old repair map of the charming beachside town, I can't help but reflect on the long and arduous journey that led me here. The sound of a young family's laughter drifts up through the floorboards, filling the house with a warmth and life that it hasn't felt in a long time. It's a far cry from the cold, silent emptiness that once pervaded these rooms. My family has always been closely tied to this beachside town. My grandfather, Mr. Thompson, was a hard-working fisherman who built this house with his own two hands. He instilled in me a deep love for this place, teaching me the value of hard work and the importance of taking care of what's yours. After his passing, I thought this house would always be my safe haven, a place where I could create memories and build a life. But then, everything changed. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, the clatter of silverware against the old dining room table seemed to echo with an ominous tone. My mother, a controlling and opinionated woman in her late 50s, suddenly slammed her fork down and declared, "Katie, you have 24 hours to get your things out. This house is your brother's now." I was stunned. I looked at my father, hoping for some kind of support, but he just stared down at his plate, avoiding my gaze. My brother, Ryan, who was 30 and had always been the favorite, leaned back in his chair, a smug smile on his face. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment, plotting behind my back. I felt a tightness in my chest, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I calmly set my napkin on the table and pushed back my chair. My mother's eyes narrowed, waiting for me to explode, but I wouldn't give her the reaction she wanted. I walked out onto the porch, the cold sea breeze hitting my face. The house that I had spent years renovating, pouring my heart and soul into, was being taken away from me. That night, I barely slept. The house, once filled with so many memories, now felt like a prison. I walked through each room, my footsteps soft on the floorboards that I had sanded and refinished. In the kitchen, I could still smell the faint scent of the varnish I had applied to the cabinets during late-night projects. I remembered how I had used my hard-earned paychecks to buy new appliances, how I had scrubbed every stain out of the countertops. Upstairs, I paused outside my old bedroom. I remembered the big storm a few years ago when the roof had started to leak. My father had said there was nothing we could do without money, but I had drained my savings and worked overtime at my job to hire a contractor. The repairs had held, and I had proven that I could take care of this house, even in the face of adversity. As dawn broke, I knew I needed to take action. I wrapped a coat around my shoulders and stepped onto the porch. I scrolled through my phone and found the number of my old friend, Lily. We had met at a local coffee shop years ago, both of us eager to prove ourselves. She had become a lawyer, known for her sharp mind and unwavering determination. When she answered the phone, her voice was as no-nonsense as I remembered my grandfather's rough voice, his hand on the railing, telling me that this house would always need me. I had assumed that the house had passed directly to my parents, but now I realized that I might have been wrong. "Never assume," Lily said. "If there's a will naming you as the heir, your parents may not have the right to give the house away." She promised to have someone search the probate court. I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. For the first time since the night before, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own life. I went back inside and started rummaging through drawers, looking for bank statements and receipts. By mid-afternoon, Lily called. Her voice was urgent. "Katie, I found something. There's a notarized will dated 3 years before your grandfather's death. The house is left solely to you." My knees buckled, and I sank into the armchair that I had bought with my first real paycheck. I thought of all the evenings I had spent on the porch with my grandfather, watching the ships on the horizon. He had known all along. He had trusted me to take care of this house. "Why didn't they tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Because it didn't suit them," Lily replied. "The will was filed, and your parents had access to it. They just chose to ignore it. They couldn't stand the fact that your grandfather passed them and Ryan over. I was filled with a mix of anger and sadness. I realized that the betrayal hadn't just happened last night, it had been building for years. They had buried my grandfather's decision to prop up Ryan, to protect his pride. Lily said, "We can enforce this. I'll prepare a petition, but you need to stay calm. Keep organizing your evidence. They'll fight, but the signature on this will is stronger than their actions." I stared at the copy of the will that Lily emailed me. My grandfather's handwriting was just as I remembered it from old letters. They had tried to hide it, hoping that I would be silent and accept their decision, but that silence was now broken. The next morning, I was determined to act before my parents and Ryan returned. I called a local moving company and explained that I needed a rush job to move some of my belongings. The man on the phone was hesitant at first, but he promised to send a crew by noon. While I waited, I walked through the house with sticky notes and a pen. I marked only the items that I had bought with my own money, like the gray sofa that I had saved for months to purchase, the stainless steel washer in the basement, and the curtains that I had chosen to match the walls. Through the window, I saw Mrs. Jenkins from across the street watching me. A few minutes later, she knocked on the door and stepped inside. "You've always been good to this place, Katie. I've seen you work so hard on it. It's yours as much as your grandfather's," she said. Her words gave me the strength I needed. Soon after, Mr. Davis, a neighbor who worked at the docks, stopped by. He looked at the porch beams that I had reinforced years ago and said, "Your grandfather would be proud." When the movers arrived, the rooms were marked with colored sticky notes. I didn't take everything, I only took what was rightfully mine. Just as the movers were loading the sofa into the truck, I heard the sound of tires on the driveway. Ryan stepped out of a rented car, a suitcase in hand. He looked at the house as if it was already his, strutting up to the door without even greeting me. When he saw the empty rooms, he stopped short. "What the hell happened?" he demanded. "I took what belonged to me," I said calmly. "This is sabotage. Mom and Dad gave me this house, and you've gutted it," he shouted. I crossed my arms. "The washer, the chairs, the sofa. I paid for them, and I have the receipts. If you want to call this home, furnish it yourself." His face turned red with anger, but then something else flashed in his eyes: fear. He sat down on his suitcase and rubbed his temples. "You don't understand. My business is falling apart. I promised my investors collateral. And Sarah's pregnant. I need this house." For a moment, I saw the brother I had grown up with, the boy who had scraped his knees playing on the beach with me. But then I remembered all the times he had let me down, all the times our parents had favored him. "I'm not your collateral, Ryan. Grandfather chose me for this house, and that's the truth." His jaw clenched, and he said, "You'll regret this. They'll make you pay." I stood my ground as the movers closed the truck doors. Ryan glared at the emptiness one more time, but what he was really losing was his sense of entitlement. 2 days later, I stood in the probate court with Lily, clutching the copy of the will like a lifeline. My parents sat across the aisle, looking rigid and angry. Ryan was fidgety, his eyes tired from lack of sleep. Lily presented our case, outlining the will, my mortgage payments, the receipts for repairs, and the statements from neighbors who had seen my dedication to the house. My mother tried to argue that my grandfather had always intended for the house to stay in the family, but the judge interrupted. "Intent is not stronger than a signed and notarized document. This will is clear. The property belongs to Katie. Until probate is complete, no transfer or occupancy can occur." The judge's gavel struck, and the sound echoed through the courtroom. My parents flinched, and Ryan's face hardened. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. After the court case, I returned to the house. It was half empty, but the silence no longer felt like loss. I went into the kitchen, opened the drawer, and took out the old brass key that my grandfather had always kept on a leather string. I placed it on the counter, a symbol of what had been decided long ago. A week later, the official deed arrived in the mail. My name was written where my parents had tried to erase it. I traced the letters with my finger, not with a sense of triumph, but with a feeling of peace. I decided that I wouldn't keep the house for myself in the way my parents and Ryan had expected. I met with a representative from a local land trust that protected homes for working families. We drafted a lease that would ensure the house remained affordable and safe for a new family. In return, I kept a small upstairs studio for myself, with a window overlooking the bay. That evening, I unlocked the studio and set my bag on the floor. I knew that the rooms below would soon be filled with the sounds of a new family, and I was ready to let go of the past. I sat down at my desk and wrote a letter to my parents. I told them that I wouldn't be their rescuer anymore. If they wanted to have a relationship with me, they would have to commit to counseling. I enclosed copies of the receipts, the court order, and the will. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't anger that guided me, it was the need to set boundaries and stop the cycle of betrayal. A knock at the door interrupted me. It was Mrs. Jenkins with a basket of muffins. "For the woman who kept this place standing," she said with a smile. Her words filled the room with warmth. Later that night, Mr. Davis stopped me on the street and clapped my shoulder. "Your grandfather would have wanted it this way," he said. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. He admitted his mistakes, spoke of his fear for the future, and asked for time to make things right. I left his message unanswered for now. I knew that the final chapter of this story was yet to be written, but I was ready to face whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that I had found my own anchor in life.